Okay, so it is 8 o'clock. We are going to get started. And I appreciate those you putting your cameras on. That's a nice professional courtesy. I do love to see your faces. I know, yes, some of you I know you're unable to. That's okay. I know some things are going on. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not judging. I just do love to see you and see your beautiful faces. Um, so those of you who've been here before, just make sure that your name appears, and that's how we take attendance. People from the future watching the video, I'll be giving you those key codes that you'll put in. But if you're here, you don't need to do anything with those key codes. Just as long as we can see your name, you're fine. If you get bumped out of teams, don't panic. I get bumped out all the time. Let me tell y'all, teams and me are not a team. Like, teams and me are not a team. So if you see me suddenly disappear, don't panic either. I will come back in. If it happens to you, just come back in. Like it, ugh, I hate teams. It's so horrible. But well, we work with what we work with. So anyway, I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can see the presentation. If at any time you are unable to see the presentation or you're unable to hear me, please let us know. But you should be able to see it now. And we are going to be talking about reading as graduate students. My name is Dr. Elaine Pascal. You can call me Elaine. I am from the Writing Center. Some of you may have seen my name on your scholarly skills community certificates. Those of you who've been doing them, I've been issuing those certificates as quickly as I can back to you, but they are done by hand. Like they're not done by a machine. They're done by this girl. And so it does take a little time. And I appreciate your patience. Y'all been so good. But we are talking about reading. And as you know, I mean, it's week 4. You have a lot of reading to do as graduate students, right? And unfortunately, you have to do it. I can't like tell you how to skip it, but I am going to give you a few tricks for how to deal with that tonight. So I'm going to pull this up so you can go ahead and start thinking about logging into Menti. The code is up here. This little box in the front is the one that works, the QR code that's closest to you, because Mentimeter doesn't let you like open up things and revise them. So see if you can get in. Let us know if you're struggling with getting in. And I see a lot of you. I see you in there. Okay. Oh, you're good. You see, you guys know what you're doing. You're making it so easy. Ugh. Oh, look at you. God bless. You're all in there. Okay. Wonderful. So let's go ahead and it looks like you're all coming in there. Let's go ahead and do our first Mentimeter. I'm going to give you a minute to look at this, but think about, what you do as a reader. What activities are you already doing? I see a lot of note taking. That's really good. I do a lot of note taking too. I can't do anything without taking notes. I take notes. I'm like, last night I was watching this TV show with my husband. I was literally taking notes on my phone. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Cause I know there's something big coming up, and I'm taking those." That's a little obsessive, but scheduling time, perfect. Strategic reading, great. So y'all have a lot of good skills already for reading. That's awesome. You're super, super duper smart and you're super good and you're in the right place. So let's talk about what we're trying to accomplish in our brief time together tonight. I tried to break this into like pre-reading, reading, post-readings. I think that kind of makes sense. So we're going to talk about first how to plan for our readings, then actually how to read critically. And this one, Learning Outcome 2, is where I'm going to share my super, super secret recipe for how to read an academic journal. And it is a super secret. So don't share it with anyone who's not here, because if you're not here, you don't get it. And then the third one is assessing what you've learned. And that's really important. because when we're reading, we're not just moving our eyeballs over words, right? We're actually internalizing that reading and learning from it. So assessing is how we determine what we've learned and what we still need to learn. And doing that is so good for your brain. Your brain loves when you start. It's like, you know how when you work out and then like your muscles kind of, at first they ache, but then they feel good. It's the same thing with your brain. When you read and then you assess, at first your brain's a little like, and then it feels really good. Like you're giving it some food or something. So that's our steps for tonight. And like I said, reading is it's a necessary evil at the graduate level, but we're going to talk about how to do it and how to do it in a way that hopefully will make it less painful for you or help you improve your skills. So before we jump in, I want to give that first key code to the people watching the video. So for if you're here, don't worry about the code. But for those of you watching the video, we are going to have Super Bowl codes. So the very first one is football, Football, football. If you're not here and you're watching in the future, send football to tutoring@usa.edu. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So pre-reading. I love this slide because my favorite thing in movies is when, you know how like when they knock everything off a table and then they roll out a map and they're all like really seriously intent looking at that. Like that's my favorite thing in a movie. And I always want to do that at home. Like I always want to just like knock things up and roll out a map. So think about reading as like having a map and finding a treasure. And picture me like knocking things off a table and being really happy because I at someday I will get to do that. I'm going to do it. But anyway, think about yourself like starting this journey of reading and think about like when do you do your best thinking? Are you a morning person? Are you an evening person? Because that's when you'll want to read, when your brain is doing its best work. Um, a tip I have when I was a graduate student way back a million years ago, and I was such a good student. I was really like I have shelves of awards. I was such a good student. But anyway, what I would do is I would get started on my readings early. Even, you know how sometimes you get your syllabus before the term begins? I would start like in on that first reading before the first day of class, even. I'm not saying I'd read everything in the syllabus, that's ridiculous. But I would try to get a head start. Because as you know, often with your readings, you have an assignment due like that Sunday. So you're not going to wait till Friday to start reading. That's not enough time to really absorb the reading, think about it, do whatever it is you have to do with it, write a paper, complete a pack back assignment. And also, I always had this sort of anxiety about like, I mean, like many of you, when I was a graduate student, I was working full time, I had children, and I was always thinking like, well, what if one of my kids gets sick? What if I have to stay late at work? What if I like have a day where I get bad news and in my brain I'm like, I just can't read today because my brain is on whatever's happening. So I always wanted like to have that cushion so that if something happened, I wasn't late on the paper or the assignment or whatever's due at the reading. So really time management, which you've all learned about in the Skills for Success, is a part of reading. And think about what you learned about time management and how you can bring that in to your reading. But I really do recommend trying to, get ahead of it, allowing yourself a cushion, not waiting to read like the day your discussion boards due. That's not enough time. So another part of pre-reading, I'm going to tell you, now I told you what I did as a student. I'm going to tell you what I would teach students when I'm teaching for reading. Because I would have students say, what do you want us to do with all this reading? Or they would complain, it's too much reading. I can't get through it. What should I do? So I would give them 3 steps for reading. I would say before you even, and this is a picture of my desk, obviously. I would say before you even start reading, look at the discussion board prompt that I've given you about the reading, or look at that writing assignment that's due on this reading. understand what you need to know. Again, think about being a treasure hunter. What do I need to find out? Because as you know, there are readings where, God forbid, the writers kind of go off tangent. They talk about something that's important for them, but not important for your assignment. And you can sort of skim that part. You're giving yourself a little bit of a break there. Also, as you're doing this whole discussion board assignment, ask yourself what you already know. What do I already know? I'm looking at that pack back assignment. I'm looking at that paper assignment. What can I already contribute to that? And the reason why you're doing that is because it's easier to build on an existing foundation, right? Like if you're going to build a house, isn't it easier to find a flat piece of land that already has the utility set up as opposed to like finding a swamp with nothing there, right? It's the same thing going on in your brain here where you're like, if I already know something about this, I'm going to build onto that scaffold, as you will. It's going to make it easier and those connections are going to really help you. So that's number one. What am I being asked and what do I already know about it? Number two, look at what it is you're being asked to read. Look at that scholarly journal, look at that book chapter, glance through it. What are some of the headings? Are there any notes the author included? If you're reading a chapter of a book, there are often questions at the end. Look at those questions before you read. See if you can answer any of them in advance. Or maybe you have an idea of it. And you can make a game for yourself. Like, go, if I can answer 3 of these 5 questions, I get a piece of chocolate. You know what I mean? Make it fun for yourself. But again, getting that sort of, what do I already know? What are my thoughts already about this before you're diving in? And then third, make use of the visuals. When you are looking at scholarly articles, there are most often tables and figures as part of them, and in chapters of books as well. And the rule with tables and figures is that you must be able to understand them without having read the article. That's the rule. They have to be that clear. So you can garner a lot of information just by looking at those visuals, and it'll help you, to have some information in your head before you start to read. So what do I need to know? What do I already know? Look for things like headings and questions, and look for visuals like tables and figures. Those 3 things will really help you to make the reading easier. And also use your resources before you start to read. The most important one is your faculty. If we're talking about treasure and treasure maps, they're the pirates who hid the treasure, right? They know what you need to know. So use their office hours. Drop in and ask them some questions like, well, how should I approach this reading? Or, what are some of the expectations of me? A lot of students are afraid to use office hours, and I don't know why. Speaking of, the Writing Center has 5 open office hours a week, different days, different times that you can drop in and ask writing questions. If you have stranger danger, I am Wednesdays and Saturdays, and you could drop in. And again, students drop in and they're like, I'm so sorry. Like I get paid $1 million to sit there and answer questions. You're not bothering me. Ask me your questions, right? And do that with your faculty too. Take advantage of those office hours. Don't be afraid to go in and ask your questions. Take advantage of the class time. A lot of students think, well, I don't really need to read because I'm going to go to class and we're going to discuss it in class. Now, this isn't kindergarten. Your faculty's not going to hold up a book and read to you and, like they did when you were a little kid. The expectation is that you come to class having already read, and then you can now apply what you've read. Like maybe you'll do a case study with it. Maybe you'll have a debate with it. Maybe you'll just have a discussion with it. But doing all that, again, moves it from that short-term learning to that long-term, short-term memory, I should say, to the long-term memory. So make sure you're reading well in advance of class. That way you know what questions you have when you show up for class. And again, don't be afraid to join like study groups, or if you have a friend in your class, partner up with each other and help each other through the reading. There's no shame in that. That can make it more fun for you. And tutoring is also available. So let's do another little poll. When do you try to build reading into your schedule? Now that we've talked about pre-reading. Well, I'm happy to see that a big chunk of you, the majority of you, do read before you go to class. That's excellent. And more than half of you start your week reading. Again, that's excellent. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. You guys are so smart. Okay, we've talked about pre-reading. Let's talk about reading. So, listen to me. Listen. Don't worry about how fast you read. People get really hung up on this and they're like, oh, I know this person, they read so fast. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are understanding what they're reading. They could just be running their eyeballs over that reading and not retaining anything from it, right? That doesn't mean anything. Some people are slower readers than others. Most people become faster readers over time because it's a skill and it takes practice. So as you read, you get better at it. And as a graduate student, you become better at reading like from your discipline and reading things like scholarly articles, which are new, but then you get a real feel for them and you learn how to read them. So don't get hung up on, you know, how fast you read. Don't time yourself. Don't worry about like your word count or anything like that. It doesn't matter. What's really important here is again that you're retaining things and with practice, you'll know when you need to slow down and really pay attention, right? Like if you have looked at that Blackboard or Packback prompt, or you've looked at that paper assignment prompt as you're reading, you'll know like, oh, wait a minute, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be writing about later. And you know to slow down and to really pay attention to that part. And then you might go a little faster over other parts that aren't quite as important to you. And that's okay. And we're going to talk about some of these strategies too. And also be patient with yourself as your skills improve. There will be readings that you'll have to read multiple times. You will. You will. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. Allow yourself to do that. Think back to your SMART goals. Make some realistic goals for yourself for your reading and your studying sessions. Don't put too much on yourself all at once and give yourself breaks. Like sometimes allow yourself just to read for pleasure, God forbid, or watch some television. If you guys knew the television shows that I watch, it's shameful. You would judge me. It's shameful. The show. I'm not even gonna tell you. It's if you pop into one of my office hours, I might tell you, but I'm not telling you right now because it's very, very embarrassing. But you know what? Sometimes I have to because my brain, I need, like I call it brain candy. I need to just stop for a minute and just do something really stupid and watch something really stupid. Okay, let's do the second key code for the people watching the video. Again, those of you here, don't worry about it. The key code for people from the future is touchdown. 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 You're going to send that to tutoring@usa.edu. Okay, we're doing good. We're making good time. Good time. Okay, so reading. Dirty reading and taking notes. When I'm teaching, I love to tell my students about dirty reading. I ask them to please do what I call dirty reading. Some of you might have had this experience. I did. When I was in elementary school, they would give you a book and you would write your name in the front of the book. And at the end of the year, you would return your book and they would go through, like you would have to stand right next to them and they would go through the book to make sure that you didn't make any marks in the book when you returned it. So they sort of trained us to like almost like sit on our hands when we're reading. And that's the opposite of what you should be doing. You should be writing in your books. You should be highlighting. You should be making notes. You should be marking things, making questions for yourself. Come up with a system that works for you. If you're highlighting, be sure not to highlight everything. Some people go crazy with the highlighting. What you're doing when you're doing dirty reading is you are making a system of notes. So if you're highlighting everything and then you return to look at it, it's not cueing you to look at anything in particular, right? Everything's highlighted. But if you're just highlighting like a keyword, some vocabulary or whatever, that's going to cue you. I'm a Post-it girl. I love my Post-it notes. I'm very like kinesthetic. And so what I'll do when I'm reading, like let's say I come to a vocabulary word, I'll write the vocabulary word on the front of my Post-it note and then write the definition on the back. Or maybe like there's a theory, I write it here and then maybe I write like who said the theory on the back, whatever. Then when it comes time for like a quiz, I have my quiz notes. I can like look at that word and quiz myself. What does it mean? There's the answer right on the back. Or who was that theory? Or what was this theory? And then on the back, it's what it was. And I can quiz myself. So that's a system I like. Find what works for you, but get in there, roll up your sleeves, get dirty with it. Just get in there, make notes for yourself. One thing we have learned though is that there is a difference between actually like taking notes by hand and typing notes. It's really good for I know I keep talking about the brain and you're like, you're a writer and we're health science people. Like we know more about the brain than you do. And you know way more about the brain than I do. But I do know about writing. When you write and do like this with your hands, it does something for your brain, that movement across. It's really good for you. So I do recommend writing out notes if you can, especially if you can read your own handwriting. Sometimes I get to the grocery store and I'm like, what the heck did I want? Because I can't read my writing. But another thing that they found out is that if you're typing, you tend to type everything. And I know I do that. I've been in meetings where they'll say, can you take notes? And it's almost like I'm a court stenographer. I'm like typing every single thing that everybody says, and we don't need all of that. It's hard. And so the same thing, if you're like reading and typing, you might end up overdoing it, just like you might end up overdoing it with the highlighter. Now, in the tutoring services in your MyUSA, I'm not going to show this to you because I know Teams. And if I stop sharing this and start sharing the MyUSA, Teams will kick me out. It will. It'll boot me out. I know that. So I'm just going to tell you, just please listen to me. If you're in MyUSA and you go to academic support, you should be really familiar with going to MyUSA and academic support. That's where all your academic, blah, 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 I can't talk. It's late at night for me. That's where all your academic supports are, including Writing Center, where you find me. But if you go to tutoring services, there's an active learning resources and an active learning notes grid. And we will be putting little links in the chat for you for things like that. It's just a grid. It's like a spreadsheet that you can use for taking notes, or you can develop your own kind of spreadsheet. Again, whatever works for you. It doesn't matter how you get to that finish line. Let's go back to the Super Bowl. Doesn't matter how you get that touchdown as long as you get the touchdown, right? So no one's watching you. Do what works for you. Okay, get ready. Drum roll. Here's my secret tip for how to read a scholarly article. So you're in the library and you're searching for articles for a paper that you're doing, or even when you get to like a capstone or dissertation, those big long projects, you're in the library and you have all these journals and you're like, I can't read all of these. Well, you're not going to. Here's the trick. And you know this one already. You start with the abstract. You already know that. I'm not telling you something you don't know. The abstract is a summary of everything, right? It gives you the problem, it gives you the purpose, it gives you the methods, which is sort of like the recipe that the researchers use, like their steps, their plans. It gives you the results, the what happened, like everything. It's dense with information. And right off the bat, you know if you want to keep reading or not, if the article is going to be useful for you or not. So that abstract is always, always first. Then you go next to the beginning of the discussion section, which is the last part. Now, if you were reading a work of fiction, that would be a crime. That's criminal to jump to the end, right? You'd never, ever, ever do that. But in a scholarly article, you do. You jump to the end because the end is the so what. That's when the writers, the authors, the researchers, whatever you want to call them, that's when they say, this is why this was important, and they explain to you why. They relate it back to the literature that they read. It's again, it's a lot of information and a lot of like epiphany and so what. It's really important. I might even stop there sometimes. That might be enough for me to like answer a pack back question, right? Just between you and me. But probably you'll go to the figures and the tables. Again, you'll get all that visual information. You'll find out like who the participants were in the study and, their ages and education level and whatever, and their answers, their results, just from glancing at those figures and tables. And again, that might be enough. If not, you'll go to the last paragraphs of the introduction, which tells you like what they were doing in their research questions that they're trying to answer. And then you might go to the method, which, as I said, is a recipe. It's their process, it's their plan. And then the conclusion and final paragraphs, if you're still reading, so you're kind of bouncing around. You're not reading from beginning to end, but you're grabbing really important information. Now, those of you who are working on research projects, like when you get to a capstone or dissertation, if you're not, and I work a lot with capstone and dissertation students. I'm the one I do the boot camps, I do the Thursday night presentations. So I'm always recommending this because I'll have students say to me, I know what I'm interested in broadly, but I don't really know where to go with it for this project. I just don't know. If you look at a researcher where they write for future research, you should, and they give you topics. That could be your capstone, what they're recommending. That could be your dissertation, what they're recommending. That's not plagiarism. That's not cheating. So, consider that. Think of if you really are getting stuck and you're like, I just don't know. I know I love talking about like animal assisted therapy, but I don't know what specifically. Read some things on it and see what they recommend. It's a good way to get yourself going, get unstuck. So that's all you're reading. Now let's talk about what you do after. So what you're going to do is you're going to work on retaining that material. This is what's so important. We're not just reading just to read, we're reading to retain. So here are some suggestions. One is to space your study sessions apart. So again, going back to, remember we began this hour with me saying, start your reading early. That will allow you to space those study sessions apart. If you're waiting to the end of the week to do your reading for that week, you don't really have time for these study sessions. But by touching back on this subject, going back to it, it really helps with your familiarity with it, really helps you to learn it. We call it spaced practice. That's why I put all those little stars here. I also really like stars. Quiz yourself. Make quizzes. One caveat, please avoid using AI to develop your quizzes. Emerging research has shown that AI can impact your critical thinking. We're trying to be critical thinkers with our readings, and AI can actually hurt that, which is the opposite of what we want. Also, as you all know, AI pulls from everything on the internet, so it might be giving you false information. And then you show up to your class or you write a paper, you take a quiz and you're putting down the wrong information. You don't want that. And again, for those of you going into capstone and dissertation, do not be very careful with AI. Like don't plug data in and ask AI to make you a table or to help you with coding, because that can really harm the confidentiality of your participants. It can make it look like your material is already published somewhere. It's just a bad idea. And I know you're like, well, Elaine, you're a writer, so you hate AI. That's not true. That's not true. There's some benefits to AI, but I really don't. I think like with your studying, with your writing, I would just not do it at all. Instead, what I would do is I would like find some fun way of quizzing myself, like to gamify it. Um, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, but always just engage in active learning and use your active learning strategies. So here, let's talk about some fun things you can do. You're going to develop reading assessment opportunities, because what's important here is it lets you know what you don't know. So let's say you go back to those questions in the chapter of that textbook, and after you've read it, you still can't answer those questions. That's okay. Now you know what to ask your faculty member during office hours, or what to ask your tutor during tutoring, or what to work on with your study group, or ask in class. Don't ever be afraid to ask. This is what helps. And we've learned that by knowing that you don't know and asking the question, it's a better strategy. You have a better chance of learning than you do by going back and trying to reread it multiple times. Because just going back and reading it again and again and again, and it's not getting in, it's the same effect as like some of you might have experienced this, where your parents were like, you are not getting up from the table unless you eat all your vegetables, right? Was that a good strategy? Did that make you love vegetables? No, that was a horrible strategy, right? Same thing of being like, I'm just going to sit here and read this till I learn it. No, go get some help if you're having difficulty. And try different approaches with your reading, with your quiz. Maybe you try a quiz and you don't like it. Maybe you try a study group and you're like, this doesn't work for me. Whatever. Try different things. There are gamifying ways to assess yourself, like Kahoot, which is free to use. I used to use Jeopardy templates for students, where they would make Jeopardy games for themselves. And if you have a group, that can be a lot of fun. Especially if I know some of you are really competitive. Some of you really, really like to win, right? So if you're doing something like that, it can make it fun and help you with your learning. And again, your brain loves when you do this kind of work. So there's a lot of things out there. Escape rooms. I love a good virtual escape room where you have to like answer the questions about the reading to get through. And there are a lot of free downloadable programs that will let you develop these. And maybe if you have a group, like you can all take turns developing and make it sort of fun for yourself. Okay, let me give the final key code for tonight, which is the defense, 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 which really, the Patriots, God bless, they got their defense really working good this year. I mean, everybody in the playoffs did defense. I would argue that defense is what got them there, but that's just me. Okay, let's talk about what type of assessment or active learning approaches do you like to practice? Looks like flashcards and note cards, or a lot of people are liking those. Again, I like those as well. Some people are using apps though. I like the apps too. I like using technology to help me study, and outlines and pre-class notes, all good strategies. And again, try mixing these up if you feel like, you've been using flashcards forever and you're like, I want to try an app. Go ahead and try it. See if it works for you. There is a video that was made by iLearn that's called Reading Critically: Strategies to Read Effectively and Retain Information. And you're like, Elaine, that's just what you talked to us about. But it's not. It's not. Because the person who led this workshop is a physical therapist. So, and I am just a writer. I am not a physical therapist. And so this person really talked about how reading affects clinical reasoning and evidence-based practice, things that I can't talk to you about. But it was real. I attended this workshop and I found it really interesting. And it is a video that's an iLearn that you can watch. So if you feel like you would like to learn a little more about that, please feel free to investigate that. It's not terribly long. I think you'll find it interesting. We're doing really good on time. Just a reminder about your academic support information. Again, that MyUSA portal, academic support. You should always be clicking that academic support. That's where you can find tutoring. You can find that, excuse me, iLearn student wellness and the best writing center. No, I'm kidding. But are some of you using the Writing Center already? I hope so. I hope you've been using it. I hope to see you in there, and I hope to see you in the presentations and in my office hours. So let's do, again, we're doing, you know why I hate to jinx myself, but we're doing good because I didn't get booted off of Teams for once. Yikes. So let's talk. We always end with some wellness tips. So let's end with talking about sleep. Sleep is super, super important. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but right now it's hard to sleep, isn't it? We're living in like a scary time. We're living in a time where there's so much out there. There's so much bad news and so much bad information, and it can weigh on you and it can make it really, really difficult to sleep. I promise you it will get better. We're going into the year of the fire horse. It's going to get better. I promise you. It's just really hard right now. But sleep is so important. Now, this first slide, I had to give this to you, but this isn't the important stuff. But I had to do, they made me do this, talking about sleep and academic performance, because this is an academic presentation. So yeah, sleep's good for memory and blah, blah, blah in your brain. And if you don't sleep, you're not going to remember stuff and it's going to hurt your reading and your REM and everything. But that's not what I want you to remember. Here's what I want you to remember. And this all comes from a man named Matt Walker, who does TED Talks. And if you're interested in sleep, and some of you might end up doing a project on sleep, and God bless, I hope you do, look into Matt Walker. So he's done a ton of research on sleep. And what they have done is talk about the importance of sleep on your brain, on your health. Y'all have heard of the World Health Organization, WHO, right? Y'all know them. They have categorized nighttime shift work, people who work like long night hours, as a possible carcinogen. It can cause, not getting sleep can cause cancer. And on the streets of Reddit, where I spend way too much time on the streets of Reddit, but on the streets of Reddit, they asked 24-hour shift workers, like, what are you noticing? Like people who work overnights and work, what are you noticing? And they're all like, everybody gets sick. People are all around me are getting cancer because they're not sleeping. And I was one of those people. No, I never did nighttime shift. Did I? I don't think I ever really did nighttime shift work. Okay, whatever, who cares? But anyway, I was one of those people who I was always like, I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? I'm like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And I always thought I could get away with not sleeping and then, oh, I'll just sleep in on the weekend. You can't do that. You cannot bank sleep. It doesn't work that way. You cannot miss sleep and then just go, but then I'll get 13 hours this way. No, it does not work that way. That's not how it works. And I thought it did. And then Matt Walker was like, no. And I learned from him. Regularity is the key. Go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time, even on weekends or holidays. Now, I know New Year's Eve, we're all going to stay up, right? I mean, yeah. It's like the same thing like when you're, trying to eat healthy and you have your little cheat. There will be times. There will be times when you're up with a sick kid. There'll be times when, whatever. But really try to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time. Try to make sure that you have a really good place to sleep. So let's look at some of these things. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Avoid lengthy naps because that's just going to throw off that schedule. You're not going to be ready to go to bed at that same time if you've been napping in the afternoon. Again, there is going to be a day when you're sick and you're going to have to nap, whatever. Avoid caffeine, alcohol, and heavy meds before bedtime. This one, create a nighttime routine like my tea, right? I have tea, I read, I do this. We do this with babies and children, right? We're like, first you have your bath, then your bedtime story, then it's bed, because we're training them to go to sleep. And then for some reason we feel like, well, once you're a teenager, you no longer need this. No, you still need it. You still need to cue your body that we're going to sleep soon. So whatever works for you. Like I said, I like to do tea and reading and that usually helps me to get sleep. I make sure that my lights, I like a really dark room. I usually have a sleep mask on too, only because my husband, who I've been with for over 30 years, and he knows I'm super sensitive to light. He'll flip on it's like Vegas in my room. Like, I'll be asleep and he'll turn on every single light, like right over my head, like shining right in my eye. I don't know why. So I always have to have a sleep mask on, but and then I try to have the lights off as well. Um, and get some exposure with like natural light. They say it's really good to go outside at dusk and be outside at dawn if you can. And I know some of us, our work schedules don't allow for that or whatever, or it's freezing, you can't be outside. But again, it cues your body. We're trying to tell our body about sleep and how important sleep is, and then make a sleep den. I love this idea of a sleep den. I picture like these foxes or wolves, like all toasty. So adjust those lights and curtains. Maybe get some blackout curtains for your room. Use a weighted blanket. I love a weighted blanket. I love that feeling. Have comfortable bedding, splurge a little bit, get yourself a nice pillow. Reduce the clutter in your room so that it's not distracting you when you're trying to sleep. Maybe have some scents going. Some of you like to have like noises going, like that white noise or whatever. I don't think that's the right word. Um, and this I never knew until Matt Walker, who's like my Lord and Savior for some reason. Keep it cool. Like your room needs to be like 68 degrees, he said. Which I always had my room so hot. I was always like a cocoon. I was always like in the womb, like wrapped up and hot. And then I realized, no, you do need it to be a little bit cooler. And now I'm a woman of a certain age, so it has to be cool, or else I'm like in distress. But try to keep your room cool. But most importantly, please remember this. Sleep is not an optional luxury. It's a biological necessity. Not getting quality sleep can shorten your life. And you don't want that. I don't want that for you. I want you to get a good night's sleep. I really am hoping that you incorporate these things in and you're getting a good night's sleep and that you'll email me and say, Elaine, I'm sleeping better now. And then I'll feel so happy for you. That'll make me so happy. So please remember that. And also remember that, yeah, it's a troubling time right now, but we do have counseling services and support. We have the Calm Psych Assistance Program, and you don't have to be in crisis to use this. Let me tell you, I've used it. I used Calm Psych, and it was super easy to use. And you can either do like an in-person visit or I wanted to do telehealth. And let me tell you, I wanted to use it because I had to have a really difficult conversation with someone that I love. And I'm not good about establishing boundaries. And so I knew this person would push back. And I wanted to have good boundaries, but I didn't want to be me. I didn't want to hurt their feelings at the same time. So I just wanted to meet with someone to maybe like come up with a strategy, a script. And we did. And it went really well. The discussion went really, really well was so much better than I thought it was going to go. It was a successful discussion. So I'm telling you this to say, It's not like, oh, a calm psych, well, I have to be in complete crisis. No, you might have something, you might be just stressed out. You might have something like me, like I did, that was just on your mind and you just really wanted some help with it. You get 6 of them per session, but they renew every calendar year. So don't forget that they're there for you. And like I said, they're super, super duper easy to engage with. And, here's some more information on it. And just, if you forget, like, how do I get this? Just reach out to somebody, will help you. It's also on your My USA. So we got 2 more little like polls or questions. The first here is, which of these strategies did you find helpful and/or do you plan to use to support your reading habits? And you can select more than one if you want. I'm so glad some of you are saying sleep. I want that for you so badly. I want that for me too. Not just you. I want to sleep. When you get old like me, it gets harder and harder. Scheduling time. Good. These are all really good. It's kind of like a New Year's resolution. Like I'm gonna keep my reading journal. I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna take notes. Whatever it is. Awesome. You guys are so good. You're so smart. No wonder you're in grad school. Okay, and the last thing I want to ask for you, you've been so patient. God, you've been lovely. What topics that you haven't seen in these past 4 weeks do you think would be useful for graduate students? Like, what haven't we covered that you're like, you guys should really talk about? Not the Super Bowl. That's not helping anybody. Ah, finances. I need that. Emotional regulation. That's really good. Music, money management. Healthy, yeah, for stress. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These are good. Public speaking, that is a good one. Because professionals, we have to do that, don't we? How to get past procrastinating. Yeah. A lot of finance stuff. Yeah, I know. I know. I hear you. I know. Although I've gotten better because my son has a degree in finance and I just like make him handle everything. I'm like, don't even tell me. Just you figure it out. Real stress techniques, not meditation or breathing. Interesting. Email etiquette, yeah. Passing the board, yeah, 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 yeah. Balancing school and social life. These are awesome. These are really good suggestions, you guys. Yeah, so good. Ugh, you guys are so good. You've been so patient. You've been so lovely. I really do appreciate it. I really hope to see you in the writing center and in my office hours and in my presentations. It'd be really nice to hang out. And again, I'll tell you all the awful TV shows that I watch. If you drop into my office hours, we could talk about really horrible trash TV that I watch. But that said, you made it through the 4 weeks of Skills for Success. Congratulations. That is my whole entire spiel for the night. I am done. So if you are done, you can go ahead and log off, and thank you so, so much. I'll just hang out for a minute in case anybody has any concerns, but it was lovely seeing you. Stay warm. Go Pats. Stay warm. You're very welcome. Get some good sleep.
Thank you so much for everything.
You're very welcome. Thank you.